Good morning and a very warm welcome to the Crone Zone. And well done if you've stuck with it this far. That's great. So, we've looked at the first seven archetypes of the major arcana. And that's those seven form the base of what a materialistic society expects of us. Those foundational personality foundational blocks that are there. And in fact, it's possible for people to live out their entire life just on the first seven archetypes. But of course, that is limited. And in order to move beyond that, with the eight, we turn inwards and we begin mining our inner resources. The journey of life is all about, maybe the journey of many lifetimes is all about knowing ourselves. And with the eight, we begin this process. So the number eight is about power, leadership, success. And the message of the eight is that these things come from self-mastery. Simple thing, well, not so simple things, but things like self-discipline, self-knowledge, being able to reflect rather than react. These are all qualities of the eights. And you will often find people who resonate with the eight in positions of leadership and in positions of power. However, that can only be achieved. We can only have mastery when we have self-mastery, where we're working to perfect that. And the word I want to give you for strength and the eighth is, in fact, that very word, mastery. So, in order to explore this further, please take out the strength card, the eight of swords, the eight of wands, the eight of cups, and the eight of pentacles. And to explore this theme of mastery initially, let's turn then to the strength card itself and look at it in a little more detail. Let's look more closely at what is actually presented on the card. In the distance, we have the mountain. It symbolises the heights we can climb to if we take up the challenge of self-mastery and aspire to inner development. The landscape is bright and quite fertile, but the greater portion of the image is taken up by the maiden in white and the red lion. This is no whip-cracking lion-taming act. The maiden is purely dressed in white, and she calms the lion, not with force, but by stroking its head and throat gently. There is no doubt that she has control of the animal. So the lion here can be seen as the animal nature. The surges of instincts, hormones, adrenaline, and self-preservation, which form a core part of our human nature. All of the seven deadly sins of which we are capable. So, how does the maiden achieve this feat without the use of force? Well, she does so by lovingly acknowledging the animal nature. She herself is tuned to nature. Notice the garland of flowers on her head and the garlands around her waist. In no sense is the lion being punished. It is simply being calmed and pacified. So there's a very important message here, and it is not to suppress or even more dangerously repress these aspects of our nature, those aspects that we may assign to the shadow of our personality. What we're prompted to do is to lovingly acknowledge all those parts of ourselves, all of those impulses, and to observe them calmly, not to act out of them. And I'd say here that we need to tune in to the inner observer, that aspect of the self which isn't reacting, that aspect of the self which observes us taking action. That's where we need to be. Because when we can be there as the observer self, we are able to take a beat. We are able to take a pause. We are able to think, no, I don't want to act out my rage here. I acknowledge my rage. I acknowledge my potential for rage. In fact, in some sense, I may be inspired by the vitality of it, because there's a lot of vitality in the shadow and in the animal and instinctual and ego nature, a lot. We don't want to crush it out of existence, but we can make better choices. We can choose how our response will go and not be a victim of our responses. In alchemy, the red lion that we see on the card, let me find it, the red lion represents the inner nature under perfect control to the higher self. In this way, those aspects of ourselves should all be serving the higher self. And the purpose of the eight, the true purpose of the mastery of the eight, is a spiritual development. You can see in the figure of the lemon skate above the head of the maiden this continuous loop, which in itself is like a sideways number 8, isn't it? And this is about the integration and looping of the higher aspects of the personality with, well, for want of a better word, lower aspects or more fundamental instinctual aspects of the personality in a feedback loop. So it's not about killing the beast within at all. It's about a harmonious looping of energies. And we're reminded here of the Hermetic principle, as above, so below. And this is very much about a blending of those two aspects of our nature. So we're talking mastery, self-mastery. And in our daily life, through the minor arcana, we can practice being master of our own ship, in control of ourselves, with an eye eventually on this perfect blending of the spiritual and the animal. We can strengthen our resolve and our self-discipline and our faith in ourselves and our confidence in our ability. So what helps us and what stands in our way? One of the dangers of life is thinking ourselves into the position of victim and being overcome by a false sense of hopelessness. This will certainly keep us from mastery. It'll keep us from even beginning on a step towards mastery of anything. We see a figure here with the 8 of swords, 3 swords to one side and 4 to the other. But there are no swords behind or in front of the woman. She could move in either direction. The bonds which tie her are so loose they're slipping down, and the blindfold is riding up. If she didn't believe she was hogtied, she could easily free herself and move. So this card is not seeing a situation as it really is and denying your own power. And maybe even worse in a way, It's ducking out of self-mastery and painting yourself into a corner with false perceptions and negativity. Oh, there's nothing I can do. It's hopeless. The positive side of this card is the news that you are not stuck and you have the power to move forward and escape this situation. The Eight of Wands shows raw elemental firepower. This is an empowering, energetic drive forward. And it's significant that this is one card in the deck without a human figure. Even the aces have those ethereal angel hands offering the ace. This is pure energy. And the challenge is going to be how to harness it, because those wands are flying at speed. We need to catch the passion and inspiration and do something with it. This is a call to swift action. There is never going to be a perfect time, so go with the flow. Notice how the river flows in the background. When this card comes up in a reading, it can be a good idea to check the direction of travel the wands fly in. Do they fly towards or away from the questioner or other significantly placed cards? Also, the card can sometimes, for obvious reasons, signify air travel. On the negative side, the card showing up could indicate rushing too precipitously into an action or being unaware of something which is approaching quickly and which might knock you sideways. The Cup cards remind me sometimes of the Grail legends, and in many ways the Eight of Cups represents this to me more clearly than the Knight of Cups. And certainly too, this is a very different energy to the Five of Cups. If we remember the figure brooding over their loss, incapable of moving on. This figure is very bravely moving on. Above them, the full moon is becoming the waning crescent. They're moving towards the dark of the moon, the unknown, symbolised by the dark rocks. And leading them ahead all the time is the water, with its gift of intuition. There are 7 upright cups gained, but this card is about having the strength to know that there is more for you. There are higher levels to explore, maybe spiritual, artistic dimensions, or a deeper emotional fulfillment. The 9 and the 10 are still to be gained, and the red-clad figure shows strong action in seeking these. There is a sense of trust, even faith here, and a reliance on integrity. This can be the energy of divine discontent, the searcher who must move on, and that's something which can be hard for people who are emotionally attached in this instance. The Eight of Pentacles. So here we are, down to the old-fashioned principles of discipline, focus, and hard work, getting on with it. That ability to stick at things and do the work, which will certainly lead to mastery and success. Often this card is an indicator of a master craftsman or someone who is apprenticed and advancing well, honing their skills and seeking that ultimate expertise in a field. Often this will be to do with working with one's hands in a very detailed, fine way. It could be an artist, artisan, or skills of other sorts. There is the ability here to discriminate and discern. That is, to know where to place the hard work and the focus. And I think the Eight of Pentacles is important in another sense too. And this is moving on to the more spiritual dimension. And it's important in its reminder to honour the everyday, to find the spiritual in performing the mundane, being humble enough to do the daily grind and not think we're too good for it, too spiritual, as it were, to do our washing or make our bed. Asked what we do before enlightenment, the Buddha replied, chop wood and carry water. When his student then asked what one did after enlightenment, the Buddha replied the same, chop wood and carry water. So remember the lemon skate above the maiden's head in the strength card, and that interactive feedback loop between the spiritual and the earthly. So if we were looking or considering a negative aspect with the card, then it's possible that that might be not getting down to work, not doing the hard work and getting on with it, a lack of practicality, and it could also indicate getting caught up in small detail and perfectionism, the danger of not seeing the wood for the trees. So let's sum up. Above the entrance to the temple at Delphi, where the Delphic oracle was, there was engraved in the stone a message, a very, very important message. And that message is, know thyself. And we can see how important that is and how it relates to what we've been talking about here. The true path of self-knowledge will take us to spiritual development. But we have to go within. In fact, it's often thought that we cannot change anything externally in the world until we have worked on that aspect within ourselves. And that by doing this work, by doing it, we actually benefit the collective. Well, you know I love the everyday wisdom of the pip cards. So let's end just with the message that they send us about mastery and how to achieve it. So in our lifetimes, we may have absorbed an awful lot of criticism, and this may become the inner critic, the self-criticism, the destructive thoughts. We need to get beyond that. It's not real. We do not need to be bound by that. Let's break free of that for a start. And then that pure energy of creation, of inspiration that the universe pumps out endlessly will be winging its way along. Let's be receptive to it. Let's grab it. Let's take it and let's bring it down to earth. Let's complete that loop of as above and so below and get something cooking down here using the fabulous energy of the wands. And then we can learn from the cups. Why be satisfied with the moon when you can reach for the stars? Aim, have the bigger view there. Be brave enough to go out knowing that there's more and that you are deserving of it. That's very important, to know that worth in yourself. And finally, do the graft, do the work. And I'd like to say, if you're sticking with me and doing the work on tarot, that's great. And you're well on your way to mastery. So I will see you next time and we'll have a look at the number 9. Thank you. Bye.